All right. So, thanks everybody for coming out. I'm echoing. Why am I echoing? I shouldn't be echoing. Am I echoing?
I don't think you're echoing. I think you're crazy.
I'm going crazy then. All right. So, for those who have never been here before, typically we do a mobile meetup on the third Tuesday of every month. So this starting is going to be my traditional meetup where I have a speaker who talks about something, whether it's Android or iOS or both. But the second half is actually going to be Iron Yard's demo day for their 2 mobile developers who have went through a grueling 12-week boot camp. So typically I have 2 speakers who talk, and then that's it. Pretty simple, pretty easy. So I'm really excited that a lot of you guys trekked all the way out here. Iron Yard typically does their stuff down in downtown, so you know, that's awesome that you guys decided to come out here, and I'm really glad that, you know, we have a really good turnout. A lot of Iron Yard kids, but, you know, I like seeing other people as well. So, aside from that, there is Orlando Tech on Thursday as well, for those who have never been before or didn't realize that it's already coming up. It's this Thursday. So, I think this one's Internet of Things. So it's going to be an actually really fun, really interesting meetup. So I will be there. I'll be probably sitting down at the sign-in desk, so you guys will see my face again. Woohoo! But aside from that, let's go ahead and get this going, so that way you guys can go get a round of beer afterwards and get some chit-chatting going and get these poor guys' conversations over with. I'm sorry they're making you guys go last. But
you can...
You want me to keep talking?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. So this one over here has spoken quite a few times at my previous Android meetups, because we used to do one iOS and one Android, and then we decided to combine them. So this is the second month that we've combined mobile into one meetup.
There is no video evidence of that. Actually, from any time that I've ever spoken.
No, this is the first time you actually have YouTube. There is a YouTube link, by the way. So
just jinxed it.
If you RSVP'd on meetup.com, there's a comment in there with the YouTube link. It will forever be on YouTube until we decide to close the channel. So there will be people who go back and watch it, and there will be people watching it live. You Iron Yard mobile guys, iOS guys, will be the first Iron Yard ones to be publicly viewed on YouTube. Yeah! No pressure. Not at all. That camera's YouTube, by the way.
Can I have my beer now? I saw Jack Daniels then.
Yeah, we do Whiskey Wednesdays.
It's even better when you send it to your grandparents and they're like, I really don't know what you do.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, there are a few videos that have a few profanity words in them.
All of them.
Most of them all do. Oh yeah, a lot of them are from me. So I will forewarn if you want to go scrolling through some of them. Be forewarned. I have told my family. I'm like, no, earmuffs. So, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
All right, so this is Austin. Like I said, he's spoken a few times. This is the first time
Your
he's
projector's not on.
finally on YouTube. So everything. Okay. Actually, yes, you'll be amazing. Thank you, darling. Okay. So, he's one of the well-known Android developers here in Orlando.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm actually kissing you. The other one over there speaks a lot too. So these are probably 2 of the smartest Android developers in all of Orlando. So if you have Android questions, bug them. Bug them. Yeah. A slight ginger with his sunglasses on his head.
The guy with no soul. That one.
They're probably 2 of the smartest Android developers in all of Orlando. So.
I feel bad about
All right.
So take it away, Al.
Cool. So, topic of this talk is binding to the limit. My name's Awesome Music. I'm application development manager at Highwinds, which is fancy corporate talk for I sit in meetings all day and don't actually get to code anymore. So what's the deal? So for those of you who don't do Android, we have this really annoying thing where we have to grab a reference to every view and then set it. whatever data you want. The problem is it's not exactly short. It's more like you have to type out a lot and cast and like all this stuff just to do the same thing repetitively over and over again. And that's Find View by ID. If you've done Android, you're very familiar with it. And there's some libraries and stuff that people have made to like make your life easier so you don't have to do this all the time. But the entire concept of data binding with Marshmallow is to eliminate some of this. So it provides easy POJO mapping. If you don't know what a POJO is, it's called a plain old Java object. And it just makes everything really straightforward, really easy. It is observable, which is cool. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it is a reactive programming term. And if you haven't seen or you aren't familiar with reactive, 2 months ago, we did reactive on iOS and reactive on Android talks. So they're on YouTube. By two really great developers who are at Disney. So the other thing it gives you is things like text watchers, like, hey, let me know when this changes. Because maybe I need to do something with it. You obviously need some XML if you aren't familiar with Android. Half of it is XML, most of it is with this data binding. And so this is what we're talking about. So first things first, Google's being smart. It's not natively included in any of the SDKs, so you actually have to add it to your Gradle file. And it's split out for you. Of course, you have to use the beta Gradle because this is still in beta. So a simple example, you have your POJO person. They have a first name, a last name, and an age. And you have your regular getters here plus your setters. Or if you like watching the world burn, you just have public variables that you can access directly. And so the way that data binding works, whenever you set your object in the XML, the first thing it tries to do, for some reason, is do the public variable method. I don't know why, but they chose to do it that way. And the second thing it'll try to do is properly go to what should be your correct getter. And so this is one of those things where you hear people talk about coding standards and style guidelines. This is where it's actually really important to get it right. And for the special people, we have first name camel case. Doesn't really tell you what it does, but it's there, and it tries to do that on the third try. So let's look at the XML. This is what it looks like with data binding. And so if you're not familiar, if you look at this and you're like, hey, layout tag, that's kind of weird. Because normally what you do is you would go to the linear layout. That would be your default root view. With data binding, they've added the layout tag, which actually, Ian, have you tried it lately? Does it still show the error? It like Android Studio complains about it. It's like, this is not a valid tag. And so and so you'll notice the data tag. And within the data tag, I have a variable tag. And that is named user, and it is a com data binding person. So that's my package. That's what I want to name the variable. And I screwed this up because this should actually be person and not user. But you'll notice down here in my text view, I have Android text person first name. So what it's going to do whenever I set my user to this view, it's automatically going to get the first name variable and the last name variable and set it to its appropriate views automatically for you without anything else. Default operator here is the @ with curly brackets. So everywhere you see that, that should be data binding. One thing that it does allow is you can set an app namespace here. And you can actually, if you do an include or anything like that, you can pass the variable all the way down your view hierarchy. So there is actually a little bit of a better way. That's kind of the rudimentary way to do it. And the better way is doing it with observable objects. So what you'll see here that's a little bit different than the original object is we're extending base observable, which is a class that they decided to give us for this entire purpose. And you'll notice the two bindable annotations that are just saying which objects or which methods are going to be your bindable ones. And you'll notice something that's a little different in the setter. We do continue to set the actual variable, but the notify property changed is what actually sends it through the stream back into what's called your BR file. And you'll see how this is BR first name. BR is a file that's generated at build time, and it will actually map all of your bindable views for you. So notify property changed, it just says, hey, this variable's changed, so anywhere that this object is bound to this view, I want to update it. So it'll go in and update it for you. Of course, there are other things to do elsewhere. A little bit different in your main activity is you actually have to set a binder. So you'll see it right here, activity main binding, and then you'll see the data util here. And the data util is where you're actually passing your view that has all of your binding annotations in it. So we'll come in and we'll create a new person object, and then we'll just say, hey, binding, set this person. And so it automatically goes through and populates all the views for us with however many variables that object has. And of course, you can do this with list. You can do this in list views. There's a list binding object as well. And so you'll notice down here we have a method called onButtonClick, just arbitrary button. And so whenever it does that, it just sets the new last name to the user. Well, with our observable objects and with data binding, it automatically will go in and update all the views where that variable is being used. So some other cool features that you can do in the XML is it does support conditionals through ternary operators. So I say, hey, is this person a friend? If they are, show their full name. If they're not, just show their last name or whatever that might be. For those of you who aren't familiar with this right here, it does a null check on the left object. So it says, hey, if it's not null, use the left. Otherwise, use the right, which is actually really handy. So you don't type, is not equal to null all the time. So one of the places that this can be used that's a little bit different than just setting text is things like visibility and color. So you can say, hey, am I already a friend with this person? Maybe I want to go ahead and set this checkbox to true. Where used to in your list adapter, you'd have to go in and do all of the checking and then go into the object and set it, all that cool stuff. Background state, so you can do a lot of different stuff with the views just based on the object, and the only thing you have to do in your code is say, hey, on bind, set this object, and it magically does everything for you. This is was intended to be kind of a quick overview of this. There's actually Fabio Collini. He's an Italian developer. He's actually really, really awesome. He does a great two-way binding with observables, which is a much more in-depth and lower-level read. It's actually really, really good. It'll show you how to do binding going back and forth between the views. So like if something happens to the view, manipulate the object, which is actually really good. And then Ross Hambrick, who's the VP of Engineering at Stable Kernel, he has a great blog post on model view model style on Android with the binding resources, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, I included the regular data binding guide. So that is a quick synopsis of data binding with Android and Marshmallow. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? How are the tacos? Okay. Yeah, shoot.
How does it work with the multiple view binding?
Multiple. So are you talking about taking the same model and binding it down to multiple views? Are you talking about the same model going to multiple views?
Yep.
It's perfectly fine. You can just go ahead and set it all the way down as long as it's in the same layout. But you can then, on your includes, pass it in the app namespace and just say app, whatever your variable is, and pass it down that namespace too. The other things you can do is like you can actually import certain classes, so like string utils and stuff like that. You can import that and manipulate the data that way too. So you can just say, hey, if I want this to be capitalized in this view always, string utils.capitalize this, and it fully capitalizes it.
So where that when you two-way bind, that it gets tricky with, like let's say data is being updated from a server, the user's also typing on the data, so you have some kind of control, right, over how you change the model.
So with that, it actually, so you actually have like handlers and methods that actually are part of that two-way binding. So it's not like it's automatically going to do that for you. You actually have to manipulate it on your own through whatever method's being called then. So if you have your appropriate checks in it, it's not going to just auto do it.
So if I was to say, like Facebook and inflate all my views on the instrumentation thread, I could basically replace React with this. Because I would have hidden views that would
Yeah. So yet again, we have proven JavaScript to be a futile endeavor. Where's David K. Piano?
I can screenshot wall and React.
It's right there.
Futile. It will forever be futile. Let's not talk about React Native. I saw that this week. It was depressing. Sad. Somewhat traumatizing.
So you're not a fan.
No. Let's not talk about Facebook.
What about backward compatibility?
It's not going to be a problem as far as there's no minimum. I think the minimum's like 7. Nobody really don't develop below 15. So it's not going to be an issue. The only thing that I will say with that, doing backwards compatibility is going to be, there's so many places to make a mistake when you're trying to go back and fix that stuff, that some of the places where you might forget that you're changing a view, or you have some weird view logic that's like some people will do like event bus back to change something. Like with the data binding and that, like it's a very prime opportunity to create bugs. So I don't know, I would probably save it for new projects, or save it for, like if you do your development appropriately, like you should be able to do it, as you go along, start changing stuff over. So that would be basically that.
But in terms of runtime,
Have you seen any runtime stats on it?
Actually, it's faster.
I have. Yeah, I thought it was faster, but I don't know the actual stat.
Performance benefit and things like recycler view, where you're
Yeah.
the same layouts a lot of times.
Yeah, because, and that's actually really important because, wait, was that an Android chat that we were talking about that today?
Well, that came from JoyCon because Roman Durr was talking about it.
Yeah, because the text views aren't being reset all the time.
Just views in general. So
Yeah.
The way that when you inflate a layout in XML, obviously every time you inflate that XML, it's going to be in the same order, right?
Yeah.
Logic is a static file.
Well,
What happens with inflation is that it's inflating the exact same thing. So instead of doing find new by ID, you can actually just index into the XML based on that it's a tree, so you can just go in and get the element.
also one thing to note about that. I found conflicting resources on this, but the general bug with data binding that they've suggested to be careful with is if you're going to do things outside of the text, to set the text first. So if you're going to do data binding with setting text, set that and then mess with your visibility and all the other stuff afterwards. I read like 4 different places where people are like, highly recommend you doing this for stability. Yeah. It ends up conflicting with itself.
Is that like an order of operation?
Yeah. I don't know if it's something they'll fix or what. I know there's an issue open for it.
But Google's advice is to use it in places where you're going to have the same view reused multiple times. Don't use it for one-offs, like when you would have typically made a compound view. Don't try to use this for that because you're going to dig a hole.
Yeah. Especially when you get into observables and reactive. Yeah.
So I'm not really an Android developer,
Uh-huh.
but I had to throw together a proof of concept at work
Uh-huh.
in Android. And we had a bunch of APIs, and I was making a call into one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a bunch of JSON documents
Uh-huh.
back. And I was trying to figure out how to bind it, and I had to jump through a bunch of hoops. And it's probably just because I'm ignorant. You know what I mean?
Bind it to like.
I was trying to like a little table view or
Uh-huh.
something. You know, and I just all I'm doing is I'm doing a search. I'm calling an API search, and I get a bunch of JSON documents back, and I'm pulling one key out. I just want to throw it into like a list or something. I'm just curious. So where should I look? Because I think the way I went, I was trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
So he and I have different approaches.
Give me the better one.
Let's talk about that for hours.
This is not talk, by the way. So if you want to take his advice.
I gave up all the API talks. I personally like retrofit. So retrofit's actually the networking library that makes the call, makes it super simple. It automatically serializes to JSON.
That was one of the hoops I had to jump through.
Yeah. So it'll serialize directly to JSON based on, so you tell retrofit, so like say you make an API call and you say, I have a callback, it is a list of users. And it serializes everything automatically to a list of users. And the only thing you do is you add those users to your list that you're referencing in your adapter, and you just say notify data set change.
Retrofit? It's a
Yeah.
library?
Yeah, it's written by Square. And retrofit is actually based on OKHTTP, which is actually the engine that drives HTTP URL connection. So you actually if you use retrofit versus anything that uses HTTP URL connection, you actually skip a layer of processing there.
Thanks.
Welcome.
That was worth the
There's actually, if you go on I'll post these slides in the meetup, but there's another one in there called Networking with Android that goes through all of that.
Okay.
So,
Is that listed on the meetup?
yeah, I'll throw this slide link on the meetup, but if you take off the data binding path, you have access to some of the more recent talks that I've given.
Okay.
So there's one on here called Networking with Android.
All right. But you're going to throw that up on meetup.
Yeah, I'll throw it up on the meetup.
Thanks.
Welcome. Anything else? General Android questions? No? We good? Got it? Got it good? All right. What? On what? No, I haven't actually talked to him in a minute. I think he is dead. He went to Disney, man. He's too big for us now. What was that? Alrighty then. Don't tell Caitlin. Is she coming up here? Okay, don't kill the blizzard.
Okay, Ian, you want to come up and start setting up? Okay, so as Caitlin said, the second half of this meetup is being taken over by the Iron Yard. So if you haven't heard of us, we are a 12-week boot camp. We are located, our Orlando campus is in downtown Orlando in the Exchange building off of Church Street. We run, or have run at different points, 3 different classes in Orlando: front-end engineering, back-end engineering with Ruby on Rails, and mobile engineering with iOS. So this is going to be 2 of our most recent iOS graduates who are going to be presenting their final projects. And I should say, for those of you who are not familiar with the Iron Yard, students come in with little to no experience as developers. They do 9 weeks of study in lecture and lab work and projects, and then they have 3 weeks to build an app from start to finish. So Ian is going to be presenting his project first. About 2.5 weeks of work went into this, so I hope that y'all will appreciate what he's done and also he is pretty nervous, I think, about the presentation. So if you could hold any questions that you have until after he's done presenting, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any of those after that. And I think, Caitlin, we need that HDMI to Lightning adapter as well.
Okay, it's sitting right on my desk.
Okay. Got that?
This is it.
Okay. If you can put this on your collar so that you'll be picked up on YouTube.
Okay. Where's this go? Just right
Nope,
here?
we're good. Okay.
All right, let's get it started. Oh, we gotta change the input. Where's the projector? Oh, on the projector?
You'll have to talk to Caitlin about that.
Oh, Caitlin.
Caitlin.
Projector input.
Yep. So you won't see anything in the background until it's been plugged in.
Yeah.
I just plugged in.
That's a small screen. Nope. Whatever he plugs in on that will actually be showing up on that. Okay.
Carry on, Ethan.
Does everybody know what's going on? I think he said you had to change the input on the projector.
Let's change the input on it.
on the projector.
That's what he was saying.
It should have been on HDMI already.
Claiming it's looking for HDMI 1.
Yeah, it's typically HDMI 1.
In a VGA plug.
Yeah.
It should still be the HDMI. All right, technical difficulties.
Hey,
Bear with us for a
This
moment.
always happens. We've never plugged in a straight up iPhone into this projector before.
Okay.
So that's why this is going to be the interesting part. All right, HDMI should be HDMI. Oh, that should be HDMI 1. I gotta switch over to the projector really quickly.
In the meantime, there is still food in the back, which I would love to get finished off. So if you want another taco, this is your moment.
You're good.
It is just plugged into the HDMI.
Gives me some time to prepare.
Should be working.
Yeah.
This is.
I mean, I literally just took off this and plugged in that.
This can't happen. It's funny because I went over. And what's crazy is when you put my phone into a monitor and it works. But I don't know about a projector.
Okay, I gotta put in my passcode.
Yeah, go ahead. I just wanted.
Fresh.
Yeah.
Things are not happening.
Things are not.
It's all their fancy adapters and.
Is
Is it because I was first?
It's the black. Yeah.
Converter
Black
box
magic.
for-
Can we just plug it straight into the projector?
Plug straight into the projector.
Okay.
It is now plugged straight into the
No,
projector?
it's been plugged straight in.
Oh,
No, it's going. It's going
Like,
into
I
this.
literally just took
What if
this
we plug
off
this
the
straight
HDMI
into
cable and
that?
plugged it into
Sorry for the problems.
Display setting issue because we've always had display setting issues.
It shouldn't.
well,
It's not
shouldn't,
reading
because it says no signal, so.
It's not seeing it at all.
Yeah, see, and briefly, I get the little blue bar for the AirPlay, and then
Sorry.
it goes away.
Bad luck, Ian.
You know, it's like it's trying to connect, and then
So we've had display issues with Macs and this projector where we have to mess around with the refresh rate on their screens. So I don't know. Now we can plug your phone
it's not
into my
recognizing.
computer, and then
Do I
the
need to go-
computer into.
yeah, but unless you have software to make that happen.
I have some guys. Oh, it blinked for a second.
Did it?
Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's a formatting
Cord issue.
Try turning the projector completely off, and then back on. Power cycle.
I might need it. I don't know.
Always a good idea.
Wait.
No, we just
No,
turned it off.
you unplugged it. I was like, wait.
So this
It's
converts
basically,
it.
yeah. Could we, is this the projector cable?
This is the one that's the projector. So you're plugging into this and
So
coming out.
for
through
giggles,
this.
let's just try this.
All right, that's the one that connects straight up to the projector.
Okay, that'll probably
All right, so it's
hopefully
off.
work.
We don't have one of these.
Yeah, because this is the way we did it at the
So
Iron
hopefully
Yard.
my wire has
Before you bother with
Straight to it.
see if it even works, and then if it works, then we can.
That's what I'm doing right now. It's not on yet.
Oh,
It's warming
Okay. Well, it's not dropping. Well, no. Oh, there it goes. I say it wasn't dropping its connection, but it just. Well, this could be semi-disastrous.
I've already put on a good show.
We can just do it next month.
Another month to think about it and prepare.
Just think about it, and we'll move on.
Just think about it. We'll move on.
Now
I could huddle everyone up near my phone and just.
We've broken
it's
everything.
gone from bad to worse.
It's gonna screw up John's.
MacBook with photo booth.
Yeah, there you go.
It's gonna screw up John's though.
If you look really carefully, you can just
You can really see what's going on. Okay, well, projector's turning on at least, so I guess let's set the
Let's let it fire up.
Yeah.
come up.
So exciting.
I know.
This all happened just to call
Your whole future is just banking on this one.
Okay.
This one little plug-in. It's made it blink. Come on, come on. Yes, it got it. All right.
Black magic.
Now is the sound gonna play through there too as well?
I don't want to.
I have no idea, my dear.
We'll find that out.
We'll find out.
Everyone can find out the sounds for themselves. Well, remember I had the sounds in my
Well,
head.
briefly, right?
Okay.
All right, now we can start.
Okay, now that our crisis is resolved, we are going to move ahead with Ian's presentation.
That's
So I'm
me.
going to bring your attention back to the front, and thank you so much.
I can take it away? All right. So I guess we're done with that. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Ian Kunicki, and I just graduated the Iron Yard. It was a 12-week program for iOS. I was pretty much fully submerged into it, and it was pretty much 60-hour days between lecture, classwork, homework, everything. It's probably about 60 hours a week. And we did that. We did Objective-C and Swift were the two things we did. So strictly iOS is all we learned. And for the 9th through 12th week, we did a final project. And the reasons I chose my project were, you got to have a good app. You got to do something that does something. You can't just make an app to make it. It's got to do something. So everyone likes to, they have common uses for things. I just like to entertain people. So I chose the game. I don't know. I may have a different thought process. I don't know. And I love the idea of making like the next big game. I love the idea of Flappy Bird, Facebook, Instagram. Everyone loves those games and everyone plays them. And I like to be behind the one that made the next big thing. I think that would be incredibly gratifying. And when I was doing my project, you got to keep in mind less is more, because if you overthink something, you're going to create a 3-year project and you only have 3 weeks to do it, so you're not going to be able to do it. So I had to keep that simple mindset. And I also like to eat, which you'll see how that plays into my app. It probably doesn't make sense right now. So we'll go check out, I'll run a demo of the game. The name of the game is Kebabin. You can see I'm signed in my game center. So we have sounds on it. You can kind of hear it. But I'm going to turn them off for the presentation because I don't want it kind of playing over me. I want you to be able to hear me. So we have a feedback button at the bottom. We'll start from the bottom, which allows the user to email any concerns, whatever you want to tell us, or anything, whether it's positive, negative, I don't care. Just shoot me an email. Talk to me about it. So you can do that as long as you're signed into the mail service on iPhone. And then we also have a leaderboard. Right now there is not too many people on there because it's not in the App Store yet. Not too many people on there yet. It's not in the App Store yet, but it'll get there. So this is Game Center. This is through a global leaderboard, which is what iOS provides. And through that, you can track all your friends' scores, whatever. It gives you a little bit of competitive feeling about it. And we'll go ahead and run the game here. So the basic idea is you have a skewer at the bottom. You move it, and you catch foods that just fall down. You get a complete skewer, which is 6, I believe. That gets you extra points, and it also adds time at the top right, as you can see. And they only make contact based on the, if it hits the tip of the skewer. So, it's not easy. And then if you catch the rotten one, it erases what you already have, which is not good. And also gives you a minus score. So, you're kind of fighting the clock there. So we'll go ahead and let that run out. All right. And then I also, I thought that was pretty funny, so I go ahead and add that. I went ahead and added that in there. And at the bottom, you see I tried to add the iAds in the most visually appealing section, which I figured was the bottom, so it doesn't really interfere with anything. I figured that looked like the best place. And as you can see at the top, we have the scores. They're stored locally as well as not in case you don't want to be on Game Center for whatever reason, or if you're not on Wi-Fi, whatever. We have the scores stored locally right there at the top. I'm also going to implement the skewers high score in the Game Center, which I don't have yet, but that's something that's going to come. Okay, so then you can either quit or play again. We'll quit, go back to the main screen, and that's that. We'll go back to our presentation. All right, so I'm going to dive into some code. This is the code that was involved with the items falling, which I had the most trouble with. It was the most challenging, but also the most fun because I learned the most about probably in that process. So at the top three, we're making random. We have a random function, and I'm declaring random sprite nodes, which is the things that are dropping the foods. It's doing it by random, so that way you're not getting the same thing every time. And then also we have actual x on the third line here, which is defining a random location on the x-axis, so it's not falling in the same place every time, because that wouldn't make a very good game, because then you know where everything's going to be. And then the next line, next block of code we have is the physics body, which, to really sum up the physics body, that's just describing how the things are going to move, how they're going to have motion, how they're going to have contact, things like that, which was something I had a lot of studying, and it was a lot of fun kind of working through that, because it was something we didn't really touch on much, so a lot of self-taught went into that. And let's move on. The last four lines are the ones that are specifically defining contact between the two. So the skewer and the falling food or whatever, that was those last four lines right there. As you see, the category bit mask and collision, those are defining that they can make contact and all that fun stuff. And wait, did I miss something? Oh, affected by gravity. That was one thing I had to study into. I originally had it on a timer, so they would fall by certain times from the top of the screen to the bottom, 1 second, 2 seconds, whatever number I put in there. And I found that to be kind of choppy. It didn't look as well. It would kind of skip when they fell. So then I did some research, and I found affected by gravity looked much better, much cleaner. So that's what I stuck with. And then at the bottom we have add food or add child food. And that's basically what puts it on the screen. And then you just call the function and did move to view, and everything runs smoothly. So then for stretch goals, these are some things I want to do in the future. I'd like to implement a Facebook sharing option, so you can put it on your Facebook, share scores, share whatever, just to do that. Show your friends. It'd be good to show everybody. And then also in-app purchases, I'd like to put in there, which would some things I'd like to put in there for in-app purchases would be something to remove the ads, because not everybody, some people are bothered by them, so they can remove them, and also a vegan mode maybe or something, or a vegetarian mode, so people that don't like to eat meat are not forced to play a game where you have to play with meat. They got to look out for everybody. And then I also want to improve the gameplay, maybe make it progressively harder, maybe just add something. I've got a couple ideas I'm kind of throwing around, so I'm going to work on that and see how I can make the game as best as I can make it. Now, some valuable lessons I learned during the 3-week project and also being at the Iron Yard were how to manage time and keep realistic goals. You only got 3 weeks, well, really 2.5 weeks to do this, so you really got to keep your goals realistic, and you got to crunch everything in there good, and you don't want to overthink it, or else you won't be finished, and I wouldn't be up here presenting. So I learned a lot about time management, which is great, and also, don't waste too much time on one problem. I got into many cases where I'd look at a problem for 2 hours, and I would sit there and stare at it, and I didn't get anything done. So that's not really productive. I learned real fast that if you can't figure something out, just move on, come back to it later. And a couple of times I just came back to it, and 10 minutes I figured it out. And I felt kind of bad I wasted time on it, but it's a learning process. And then also I learned the project's never going to be finished, but that's okay. It's going to be a long, ongoing process, which I'm going to have many updates and put in the App Store. As I'm building, I just think of more and more things I want to put in it, but time constraints. So I want to add more to it, and it's a really exciting thing for me. So eventually, it probably will never be over, but I like to think it maybe will eventually. And I also learned how to play ping pong at the Iron Yard, which was good because I know that's an important developer skill. So I'm glad I learned that. I was very terrible when I started. You can ask John. He was my trainer.
You're welcome.
All right, so that's pretty much it for Kebabin. If anyone has any questions or anything, this is my contact info, my phone number, email address, and my LinkedIn profile. And that's it for Kebabin.
Yeah,
So any questions right now?
What third-party technologies did you use?
Third-party technologies as
Like libraries, frameworks?
SpriteKit and Swift for the languages I use. Any questions?
Yeah, I just wondered if you consider putting in an in-app purchase for Kobe steak.
For Kobe's?
Yeah.
For like Kobe's Steakhouse?
People will pay extra for that kind of meat.
It's a good idea. I might have to look into it. I don't know.
You know,
It's a good idea. I might have
a little
to.
harder to catch.
It's a good idea. Any questions? Anybody? Comments? Suggestions? Criticisms?
What did you use for a textbook for the course?
We didn't have textbook. We just kind of learned everything was notes, note-based. We had Ben teaching us everything, and that's
And just whatever Apple documentation was there?
yeah, Apple Documents, which I learned how to read, which was pretty fun.
That can be real difficult.
Yeah, it looked like a foreign language at first, but now it makes sense now. So
And hours on Stack
good.
Overflow.
yeah, Stack Overflow is a big thing to use. So, anyone else?
I'd recommend looking into implementing analytics in your app. Any commercial mobile app generally has analytics on like how many people are using it, how long they're in the app, where they leave, that kind of stuff. It's fairly simple. Google Analytics is an example, Mixpanel, blurring, things like that. I'd recommend it.
Okay, yeah, I haven't looked into it, but that's definitely something worth looking into. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody? Nobody? Any criticisms? Something you didn't like? Anybody want to say anything? No?
Android version.
That'll come out. That'll come out eventually.
Did you do the artwork?
Yes, I did. I forgot to mention that. I did do that. I used Sketch for that, which is I was kind of surprised at how good I did. I mean, they're not great, but you know, they're pretty good for someone who has no artistic talent. I felt pretty good about my graphics. That's why I stuck with them.
And the style is all together.
Yeah, it was a fun challenge. It was another interesting learning process to use Sketch and make my own graphics. And it's kind of good. It's a good feeling to say that I made everything in the app too. As far as in the music as well, I use GarageBand, which I forgot to mention. So everything in the app I made. So I feel pretty good about that. So. That's it.
So cool.
Thank you.
He is turning. He's turning.
Let me get this thing off.
Should just start a clip.
Oh, here's the clip. Gotta find the clip.
And our next presentation is going to be from John Holcouple.
For that beard.
Yeah. How does one work this?
Should I be able to just clip it on here? Yeah.
There we go. Sweet.
And let's cross our fingers on this.
All right. Oop. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is John Holsapple, and I am 2 of 2 of the Iron Yard iOS mobile development class. My app is called Firefighter Toolbox. I am a former firefighter of 9 years, worked with the Orange City Fire Department, and basically started out as a rookie and worked my way up, driver engineer, to taking the role of an officer, father of 2 girls, and husband to 1 wife. Just one. Only in Florida. So my app will target all ranges of firefighters, from rookies up to chiefs, everybody in between, lieutenants, battalion chiefs, driver engineers. Basically, you can help with it'll help with managing schedules. If you don't know, a firefighter schedule, you work one day, you're off 2 days. So every third day you're on shift, 24 hours. There's a lot of calendars out there that don't cater to that. So a lot of calendars say, okay, you can recur an event every day or every other week or whatever. So to find a calendar that will recur every third day is pretty difficult. It's also going to offer quick reference at all levels of experience, basically to take the spot of a textbook. Also quick on-the-job calculations. I'll show you what that means in just a minute, but basically as a driver engineer you have to do a lot of math. You have to do a lot of hand methods, a lot of stuff basically in your head. There's points when you have to use textbooks. Battalion chiefs, even the fire engines, the rescues, they all have textbooks on them just so you can reference certain parts of the job. The fire service is so huge and there's so much information that you can know and that you can learn about that it's hard for one person to really remember it all. So this app is really geared towards being able to just centralize everything, one-stop shop basically. So a couple of things that went into my project was planning. I started out planning. I planned for the first 4 days of the final project period. I designed a little bit, did some more planning, did a little bit of code, did a little bit more planning. I felt like I was always planning stuff. But that's good because it made my project get better and better as time went on. My tech stack, I used Objective-C as my language of choice. With iOS, you have Objective-C and you have Swift. Preference. I like Objective-C a little bit more. I also used Parse for my data, and I used CocoaPods to incorporate Parse into my project. Now it's time for the live demo. So this is the Firefighter Toolbox. So when you open the app, you come to this sign-in page. If you don't have a sign-in, that's okay. You can sign up with your email. Just put in your email and a simple password. It shoots that up to Parse. Parse stores it. Doesn't store your password. It just stores your username. Since I already have a sign-in, I'm going to go ahead and do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Nice.
It's the same combination I got on my luggage. So as you can see, this is the main menu. You got a few points here. You have a handline calculator, some reference guides, a schedule maker. Bottom right is a soon-to-be settings menu. That'll be in there in version 2. So the first thing we're going to look at is the schedule maker. And like I told you before, firefighter schedule every third day. Firefighters do a lot of training as well. One thing you can never do enough of in the fire service is train. You're training on every scenario, from the basics, throwing ladders or pulling hose or, just so much stuff. So you can set training events, you can set your schedule. But basically all you would do is you're going to pick a start date, let's say for today, and then you pick your end date, and you can do, I just want to see the shifts I'm going to work for the next month or something. And you give it a title. I was always on A shift. Called it the Dream Team. I'm going to go ahead and let that recur every third day. You can set some comments if you like, but with the recurring section, you can let it recur as often as you want. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 20 days, it doesn't matter. So you can do that, and then you hit save event, and a little pop-up comes up, and it sends that event to your default calendar. So in your iPhone, whatever you have set up as your default calendar, it shoots it right over to that, and you can go there and you can check it out. So just to kind of prove that I'm not lying. So you can go in there, and all those little dots, some of it is like my daughter's ballet class and stuff, but we'll go to the 18th. It shoots an all-day event, A shift. So obviously, for the next month, you got all your shifts for the next month. One other thing you have, the next right in the middle, reference guides. This is really, in version 2, is going to be a huge area because just like tech, the fire service is always evolving. It's always getting bigger, it's always getting better, smoother, faster. So with the reference guides, it's good. There's going to be so many reference points in there that, like I told you before, rookies, chiefs can all pull this stuff up. But if somebody's, a firefighter has some downtime, at the station, or they're studying pump operations, they can hit the pump operations section and, they're studying terms. They'll go into the glossary. And you can pull up all the terms related to pump operations. Q formulas. A lot of people say firefighters are just, dumb guys that couldn't go to college or whatever, but there's actually a lot of math involved, especially with pump operations. And this is just some of the formulas that you would use. Some coefficients that you would use. You plug those into those formulas. They represent the hose sizes that you would find on a fire truck. Some appliances that would be used for pump operations, things like that. So basically, everything in there from the basics to special operations. Special operations, being rope ops, high angle rescue. You guys know the Orlando Eye over in International Drive. That's all firefighters who climb that and deal with that. That's all special operations things. That's all specific training that they have to go through. But you can pull up information on that. So like I said, in version 2, reference guides are going to be huge. There's going to be so much stuff in there. The last thing we're going to go over is the handline calculator. This really took the majority of the time for me to do because math is not my friend. And so to put this together, it really took a lot to do. But to give you guys an idea what it is, it looks pretty foreign, but pretty easy to use. If a fire engine's going to a fire call, they got a job that they're going to work. The firefighters jump out of the truck. Firefighter grabs the hose line off the truck and they go into the house and they start putting water on the fire. The driver engineer is in charge of that fire truck and he's going to go to the pump panel. At that pump panel, you have all these gauges. You got to pull certain things. Well, he has to set that pump to a certain pressure so that the firefighter at the end of the line will get enough water and still have enough pressure that he can move that line around and not get thrown off of it. So what this calculator will do is it'll calculate the pump discharge pressure and it gives you the friction loss. So the pump discharge pressure is the number that driver engineer is going to set the truck to so he knows that the firefighter at the end is going to be getting enough water. So an average hose diameter is 1 3/4 inches. As you can see, it's already selected. The nozzles that we use were 50 PSI nozzles. PSI stands for pounds per square inch. So he's getting 50 PSI out of the nozzle. A nozzle GPM stands for gallons per minute. So he's going to get 150 gallons per minute out of that nozzle at 50 PSI. So then he just goes into the length. So you just set the length, which an average is about 200 feet of hose. You hit calculate, and it gives you 120 PSI pump discharge pressure and 70 PSI friction loss. So he knows exactly the number he needs to set the pump to at 120 and know that PSI is the right amount to get 150 gallons a minute, no little, no more, to that firefighter. So that firefighter is going to get enough water for the fire, be able to put it out in if he's good enough, he could put it out in a pretty good short period of time. Once you have that number, if there's another line you need to calculate, you can go ahead and hit clear. You hit yes, it sets everything back to start. You can also add in appliances at the top there, number of appliances, and you can add an elevation. So if you have to go upstairs, if you have to go down somewhere, you can set the elevation negative or positive wherever you need to be. So that's the handline calculator, and that's basically the app version 1. So let's go back into our presentation. Some sample code. This is basically a little snippet of my calculator brain. So what I did was I created a brain for my calculator and made it separate. That way I can reference it in any class I needed to reference it at. So I took this brain and I put it in there, and then I made my handline calculator class. And so I basically incorporated that brain into that class. So I was able to use this. I could basically take this code and use it anywhere I wanted to. So if I made 2 calculators or 2 calculator views, I could use this one brain. I don't have to create it twice. Thank God. 'Cause this was a come to Jesus moment for me. I think I blacked out when I wrote this code because I don't know what happened. But it's just basically a whole bunch of methods. And then in my handline class, I have an area at the bottom that says calculate, and basically I can, when I'm creating my handline class, I'll just, if anywhere I have to call it, I could just hit this call calculate. It'll grab all that stuff, and like I said, that's just a small picture. I think it's like 250 lines, but it'll grab this class and just run it all. Big plans for version 2.0, like I said before. Calculator for master streams. So it won't just be a handline. You'll also have master streams that you can calculate. Master streams, big water, big hoses, big water. So you guys see on TV, big warehouses that are on fire, shooting water from a fire truck or from these big hoses on the ground. Those are all master streams. They're throwing tons and tons of water out at one time. So you'll have a separate calculator just for that. You'll have the ability to save apparatus for quick reference. So, downtime at the station, going through the app, you're messing around with it. You can save, like I'm on engine 1 today. I've never been on engine 1 today. Let me make sure I have all my stuff set. So you can go in there and you can set presets, or you'll be able to set presets for that truck so that you get to a scene of a fire. Okay, I'm on engine 1. Let me pull up engine 1. Let me pull up pre-connect 1. And you'll have all the information you need right there. You don't have to do the calculations, so you can save all that stuff for future reference. I'll also create a calendar. Instead of just an event maker, you'll have a full calendar at your disposal in that app so that you can see everything. You don't have to go to another calendar to look at it, but it'll be one dedicated calendar for the app. And tons and tons of reference guides, like I said before, just reference from throwing ladders to high angle rescue to pump operations, more pump operation to wildland. Eventually I'll have EMS stuff in there because if you don't know, firefighters in the state of Florida are required to be at least an EMT, if not a paramedic. So, they do a bunch of different things. Also auto extrication, just a bunch of stuff. So, anybody have any questions?
So the guidelines, is that something you're pulling in like real time, or is that something you?
Yeah, it pulls it in as you need it.
So as they get updated, your app is automatically updated?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, and as of right now, you have to have an internet connection to do it. Parse offers local parse, which basically, if you don't have an internet connection, you wanted to save stuff, it'll kind of save it locally, and once you get that internet connection back up, it'll shoot it up there, and it'll save everything you need. Anybody else?
I have a suggestion for you.
Okay.
I don't know if you plan to offer this as a free app or charge, small charge app, but I work with firefighters and actually reimburse firefighters to go to school. So I have an idea what schools and classes and a lot of the things you mentioned there, I reimburse for them to go to school. And I think if this were a charge app, this would be something awesome for firefighters who are taking classes to have as part of their reference material.
Absolutely.
As well. So they would be getting their textbooks, and I'd be reimbursing them for textbooks, and then they'd have an app that they have to download to finish their class.
And then you can
So
reimburse them for paying me.
Somehow you would get paid from the app. But I would just market this once you've got it just the way you want to.
Absolutely, yeah. I would like to. I would like to. I would like to take the place of textbooks eventually, if I could. I mean, there's so many out there. There's so many old references that people still use, and a lot of the reference or the textbooks, they're not digital. Nothing is. there's not a whole lot of stuff in the fire service that's digital, but they're slowly making their way, and a lot of that goes down to funding. But yeah, absolutely, you're 100% right. I would love to do that. As of right now, version 1 will be free. Version 2, depending, I don't know if it'll be free or if it'll just be $1 or what. Just depends on how big I can really make it and how much time really goes into it. But
And then a second question, how would copyright play with you putting reference guides on your?
I have no idea.
I
have no idea. So, yeah.
I think the reason a lot of these things aren't digital
Yeah.
is because the person who wrote the antiquated book needs to get paid if there's.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of instructors out there that teach at like the Florida State Fire College and the National Fire College. There's a lot of instructors that write the books that we use, and so we're learning basically from the horse's mouth. But yeah, there's so many different authors and companies that write the book, so I have no idea. That's something I'll definitely have to look into.
Yeah, and or partner with the teachers who are writing the books and tell them, I'd like to do a digital version for you.
Sure.
And have them pay you to do that.
Sure, yeah. That'd be great. Anybody else? Nobody? I actually liked it a lot. The documentation, I was telling Ben, my instructor, documentation for parse is amazing. You don't have to, like Apple Docs, you have to really know what you're looking for and kind of know how to read that stuff. With parse, it's like plain text. You just go through, read it. They give you a really good step-by-step, and I like parse a lot.
You do your graphics?
Yeah, most of them, yeah. But yeah, I designed it, and with the help of my wife, pretty much up until the last day. This wasn't looking like that. It was pretty flat, pretty boring, and I had the help of my wife. She helped me kind of make it pop a little bit. But yeah, that's Firefighter Toolbox. This is my information. I got my own .com. It's got my portfolio on there. You can email me, LinkedIn, GitHub. You can see all my work. Yeah.
All right, so thank you, Iron Yard grads. How does it feel to know you guys aren't doing this anymore?
I'm trying to get a job.
I'm talking about the 12-week crazy intensive boot camp. Trust me, I know your instructor.
The wizard.
The wizard is what?
Yeah, Ben's a wizard.
I guess you can call him that.